Here at MotoDeal, we've done a bunch of 1200 Triumphs in the past couple of years, such as both Bobbers, the Thruxton, and the Speedmaster. It's really been one of our favorite motorcycles on the channel. Today, we got one of the entry-level retro bikes of the brand, the Triumph Street Scrambler 900. So, how does it measure up to its bigger siblings? Or is there really no replacement for displacement? Let's find out in this episode of Beyond the Ride. The bike is powered by a 900cc 270-degree crank parallel twin, making 64 horsepower and 80 Nm of torque. Made it to a 5-speed gearbox with multi-plate torque assist wet clutch. Now the motor does really feel like a smaller version of the 1200, and it does sound pretty good as well. Actually, let's try it right now. I always love how Triumphs sound. It's just something about it, the low rumbling sound of a Triumph. Love it. The fuel tank capacity of the bike is 12 liters, which honestly is a little bit small for me. But the fuel consumption of the bike, depending on who you are, will vary. So here's an example. Jack, who is about 250 pounds, 270 pounds or so, using this bike in the city, he got about 16.5 kilometers per liter, which actually isn't so bad considering the extra weight on the bike compared to me. Now, on the twisties in Marilake, a little bit more open road, Jack got closer to 22.5 kilometers per liter, which is actually really impressive. Stopping power, you have a single 310 floating disc with a 4-piston Brembo caliper up front, and a single 255mm disc with a Nissan 2-piston caliper at the rear, both with ABS. Keeping bumps at bay, you have a 41mm fork with 120mm of travel up front. And for the rear, you have twin shocks with adjustable preload with 120mm of travel as well. Now, I always love the styling of Triumph, especially the retro bikes. I mean, it's really something that I've gravitated to ever since I started riding motorcycles, and this is no exception. It actually looks absolutely fantastic. It's what I want a motorcycle to look like. In fact, this particular bike, of course, it is called a Scrambler. That's why it does have spoke wheels. The size of the front is 19, the back is 17. It also has the higher pipe, as you can see right here, and this is actually something that's, well, in my opinion, it's really more about the looks of the bike, right? It's called the Street Scrambler, and that's why they have the high pipe. But I'm not too sure if it's actually as useful as, well, the bigger Scrambler of Triumph. Because, well, look at the clearance of the bike. It's not very high, right? And you'd think the reason why there's a high pipe is because you want it, if you're going to go off-road, you want the pipe to be, well, if you're going to do some river crossing and water crossing, you don't want it submerged in water, right? So for this type of bike, I don't know if it's really useful to have the high pipe, but I do know somebody who has this bike, and he does take it out on trails, and he does do some very light river crossings with it. And to him, he tells me that it's actually a lot more capable than I had imagined. Now, I haven't tried to take it off-road, but I could just picture it. It's not a bike that I would take aggressively off-road, but it's something that I would take on light trails. And speaking of the pipe right here, when you first look at it, you probably think to yourself, mainit yan. That's gonna really burn my legs. Not just my legs. If I have a pillion, their legs would land right here, and you can imagine how hot it would be. Take a look at this, right? I mean, it's touching already when I'm flat foot on the, well, I'm not really flat foot, but you're gonna feel the heat on the bike. So when you're riding it, you're probably gonna be opening your legs a little bit just to stay away from the higher pipe. It's not gonna be a problem in cooler countries, I suppose, but here in the Philippines, when there's a lot of traffic and, well, the weather's typically not too cold, it wouldn't be my choice of positioning for a pipe. It does look really good though. I mean, it looks like a proper scrambler. This is the way in my head, maybe a bigger front tire, maybe higher up. That's what a scrambler is supposed to look like. So this is a street scrambler, and I get it. I get why the aesthetics require the pipe to be there. The seat height is 790 millimeters. I'm 5'6" with a 764 millimeter inseam. And this is the situation. Pretty easy, really, really easy. The gauge is very simple. You have a speedometer front and center, and underneath it you have a digital trip computer. You can see your fuel gauge and of course your consumption as well. Changing riding modes is not a problem. You have this button here that you push. It is pretty simple. You get 3 riding modes. You get road, you get wet, and you even get off-road. The clutch is nice and easy, which you can expect from a Triumph. I mean, everything about this bike, it's a very premium machine. I mean, it's just, you expect that, right? It's a Triumph, and it's, you know, built really well, and they just mastered this type of motorcycle, and it's something that, I don't know, I want in my garage, to be honest with you. It's pretty. It's a really pretty looking bike. The wet weight of the bike is 223 kilograms, and that is pretty much where I would expect the bike to be. It's still easy to maneuver it in traffic and even around the parking lot. Not a problem whatsoever. I mean, it's a quality machine, quality bike, very pretty. Let's find out how it rides. The seating position is nice and comfortable. It's quite neutral. You are sitting pretty upright, and there's about a 90-degree bend on your legs. So it is really relaxed. It's a relaxed type of ride. But you can't really grip the tank. At least I can't grip the tank too well, which means, well, I typically would grip the tank if I'm going downhill or maybe riding at speed on the expressway. So it just gives you the idea of this bike being very chill compared to other bikes out there. I mean, if you do try to grip the tank, well, that high pipe that I was talking about earlier, baka mapaso ka. You might get burned a little bit, so I don't recommend it. Now, this thing loves to be in the low end of the rev range. I honestly found myself in lower RPMs most times around the city. I mean, you're just cruising, right? You're just basically letting go of the clutch and letting it just roll, especially in city traffic. The characteristics of the engine really make it a great city bike, and the torque is just available for you anytime you need it. And if you're just starting out riding, let's say this would be your first big bike, it's honestly, you know, very approachable. It's not difficult and scary. It really makes a case for itself for a rider looking to move into the bigger displacements. Don't let the 900cc displacement freak you out, because honestly, it's really, really easy to ride it. Now, having said that, don't think it is boring, because, I mean, for an experienced rider, let's say you've been riding for, I don't know, maybe about a year, 2 years or so, the available torque down low will make for a very interesting ride. And getting off the line is rather quick, and taking turns on a mountain road, despite that the type of bike that it is, it's actually very entertaining. Now, going back to the riding position, you know, Jack took this to some twisty roads, and he was telling me, and I've taken similar bikes like this on twisty roads as well, that it's not something that you can really rip corners around. You know, you rip around corners, I should say, or carve out canyon roads, or just take it aggressive on the twisties of Marilake. If you want to do that, get the Speed Triple. that's a great bike for twisties. This is really not a type of bike that you would really push on the twisty mountains. You know, this is really more relaxed. Very comfortable, like I said a while ago. It's great for longer stints on provincial roads or open roads. If you find yourself touring with this bike, And I think it's capable of doing that. It definitely is. I mean, you might lose out on the top end a little bit. But another thing that would be a little bit of a hassle, I suppose, if you're going to be taking this on longer rides, is that you only have a 12-liter tank. And even though that you will get close to 22 to 23 kilometers per liter on open roads, it's not ideal to have a small tank like that. I mean, you're going to have to stop several times to load the bike to refuel. And so that could be a little bit of a deterrent on taking this thing to longer roads, or longer rides, I should say. Now let's talk about the comfort. As I mentioned earlier, it is really good. The suspension takes the bumps really, really well, and it keeps you pretty stable even at speed. Although the front forks aren't adjustable, the rear one have preload adjustment, and that means you really won't be able to tear up a trail like you would in the 1200 Scrambler. But you should be able to take lighter trails. As I mentioned also a while ago, that I do have a friend who takes this on long rides, whether he's off-road or on-road, and he does some light river crossing with the bike, and it handles it very well. But if you're going to be aggressive, whether you're on the road or to take it on some aggressive trails, I wouldn't recommend it. It's not a bike that would. I know it says Scrambler. I know it's supposed to be a Scrambler, but don't forget it says Street Scrambler. So it's not something that you should be taking on some tough trails out there, especially because the clearance is not very high. I'm not gonna lie, I do feel the heat. I mean, especially if you're not moving, it's evident. It's one of the warmer bikes that I've pretty much used, and it's, you know, I've used a lot of bikes, but this is up there with other naked bikes with similar displacements from other brands. It reminds me of that, the heat that's emitting from the engine, and it's going straight to my legs. Now, is it really uncomfortable for me? No. I mean, it's not something that really bothers me, but it's also because I suppose I've gotten used to it, and so I know I'm expecting it to be warm, and so I adjust accordingly. So if you're not used to that, maybe it will be a bit of an issue for you. But I like the bike, man. I really, really enjoy it. I mean, I know most of it is because this is the style of bike that I really, really enjoy, because it's, you know, a bike that I consider to be very good looking, and it's, you know, it's a bike that I would take around the city for some stam bikes, coffee rides. It's really that. That's what this bike is. It's not about the performance. It's not about speed. It's not about taking it on some really tough trails. It's about enjoying the lifestyle and the bike that Triumph is very well known for. So, in conclusion, well, I really like the bike, but I'm partial to these style of motorcycles, the retro bikes in the middleweight category. And in my opinion, the middleweight is really the sweet spot here in the Philippines, because you really only use a liter bike if you're on the racetrack or if you're traveling long distances on an ADV. On a normal day-to-day bike, you know, 900 to 600 range, that's really where it's at least in my opinion. Now, if you want a liter bike, I'm not gonna stop you. But in my opinion, the 900cc Scrambler here from Triumph, the Street Scrambler I should say, is actually a very good bike for intermediate riders out there, and who will use the bike on the daily and have some fun with it on the weekends as well. It's a sweet spot. Is it perfect? No, it's not. But it is a bike that I can appreciate and easily recommend. You just have to cough up 820,000 Philippine pesos in order to get one. For more information about this bike on our MCs out there, log on to www.motodeal.com.ph. This has been Jinno. Hope you guys enjoyed. Going to be on the ride.